Hey, this is the Spaniard, and you're listening to Me, Myself, and I Radio.
Good morning, good afternoon, hip hip hooray. This is Me, Myself, and I Radio, a self-discovery podcast. It's all about being extraordinary under extraordinary circumstances. I'm your host, Anthony Hayes. Welcome to the journey called life. Let's go.
Sometimes in life, things can come across as rather odd or often peculiar, a little like the way that you decide to tune into other radio stations other than ours.
So hard last night, my lids are swollen. Got my guitar, gotta get to a studio. Got a track and I think it's gonna hit, yo. It's been so many years and there's been so many tears, and it's gonna be well worth the pain, see, when all my people line up to see me. Cause I got no money, got no home, got no girl to call my own, but I keep smiling, keep grinding.
Good morning, good afternoon, hip hip hooray. Me, Myself, and I Radio Tribe. Today's episode and guest sets the tone for evolving our Me, Myself, and I elements. Because we cannot see the truth in living when we hide behind a wall of fear. My co-pilot today is the author of Driven, My Unlikely Journey from Classroom to Cage. This professional mixed martial arts fighter for the UFC takes us on a tremendous journey of self-discovery today. You're really going to enjoy this. With the training required, both physically and mentally, to be an elite athlete, the Spaniard has been utilizing these tools in a variety of different ways, such as a speaker and a podcaster. His love for his family brings his Me, Myself, and I elements full circle. Spaniard, let's get into Me, Myself, and I, shall we?
How are you, buddy?
Glad to have you. Thanks so much for being here today.
My pleasure to be here.
There's so much great stuff that you have going on. What I like to do is I like to work reverse chronological order. I don't like the standard format of where did you grow up. It kind of gets monotonous and boring. So we like to mix it up. We like to start present day because this is the future of who you are, the future of who you're becoming, and to go backwards in time is a cool evolution to look at. Man, you just started a podcast. The speaking gigs, the inspiration that you're providing in your brand is just, for anybody who's not following you, we're going to have links to everything the Spaniard's up to these days. And so you can connect and see what he's all about and take in some of that wisdom that he's learned throughout his years. The podcaster, man, this is like, I want to say like the most recent venture of yours. What has this journey been like? How did you get into podcasting? That is something that I want to know about.
For sure. When a couple years ago, I got knocked out when I was fighting, and it really set me on a path of, what the heck am I going to do next? And so it all started with my book. So honestly, what probably led me to the podcast was my book. So I wrote my book, Driven, My Unlikely Journey from Classroom to Cage. And that kind of started this launch pad for formally inspiring people. I found out through, when I decided to leave my Spanish teaching position and pursue the UFC, I learned, hey, people are inspired by what I'm doing. And it was kind of new, I never set out with that intent, but it was obvious by
so cool.
By the reception that I would get and by the comments and, whatever. And, so I wrote this book, and then fast forward, I don't know, what's it been, just about a year since I released my book. So I don't know, 2.5 years since I started writing the book. And that led me to another outlet, another platform to inspire people. And that is, by way of the podcast. And it's funny, I'm kind of the mindset I have for the podcast. So it's called A Fighter's Mindset, the Spaniard podcast. And it is my mindset. It is the way I operate, the things I think, the things I do on a daily basis. But at the same time, it's a fighter's mindset, meaning, hey, you out there in listener land, if you are a fighter, and I'm not talking about in the cage, I'm talking about in life, meaning you fight for what you want. Yeah. These are the principles that will apply to you as well. So, I've taken the podcast. I've started a video series on Facebook called AM Excellence, where I read and I use the content that I read for bullet points to continue to teach. It's funny, as I get further away from my profession as a Spanish teacher, I'm realizing I love teaching. And I'm teaching in a different way, but I'm still teaching.
You can't get away from it. It's ingrained. Yeah. It's ingrained in your DNA. I love that. I can really relate to that story because when I was writing my book, I was kind of like, okay, so I wrote this book. That's great. What else can I do with this message? I mean, writing a book and selling a few copies is great, but what's the bigger picture? And I stumbled into podcasting, and unknowingly the entire time I was podcasting, it sounds like much like yourself, I was taking in these lessons and this wisdom that I had been writing about this whole time. And I didn't even know it up until probably this year, because it was a whole stumbling process. I mean, as a new podcaster, there's technology you have to learn. There's tricks and tips and tools and all these little nuances that we have to deal with. But it's fun. It's part of the whole evolutionary process. And I think, like yourself, that's definitely helped me to evolve my message.
And, another thing, whenever we were talking, I believe it was before we were on air, but, you said this, you named, several things. You said we talk about a lot of things, and these are it. And I thought that was very similar to what I'm doing. It's like what I'm doing is I'm offering basically an inside look at, hey, this is my evolution. And to some people that might seem scatterbrained, or that might seem illy marketed, if that's a word, like not properly marketed. But I believe that in everything you do, if you do it with your full intent, if you do it with integrity, if you do it with authenticity, and you give it your best, then so be it. I mean, the idea of failure and success is very common. And I just look at it, hey, I'm going to try, and I'm going to try with everything. And if it works, yeah, I win. If it doesn't, then well, I lose. Get back on the horse.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see what then you can't tell what it's going to become, and you can't tell what you're going to become in the future. And that's something that I've come to realize, especially recently, because with the whole podcasting thing and writing, and it's very new, uncharted waters to me. And I mean, I've thought about throwing in a towel so many times. I'm like, hey, what am I doing? Why am I keep doing this? What's the payoff going to be? But something inside just kept telling me, keep pressing forward, keep fighting. You were talking about that warrior mentality. We are all warriors. We are all ancient samurais in our own way. And I love to instill that into our listeners, and just let them know, no matter where you are in life, whether you're working the register at the local grocery store, whether you're a professional fighter, whether you're an author, we're all on this journey together at different points in our lives, and we all have a lot to learn from each other.
For sure. One of my whenever I do talks, I generally have a curriculum that I work from, and those curriculum are comprised of what I call my elements of excellence. And it's basically my success principles boiled down to 5 elements. And the last one of them is surround yourself with the best. And that touches on what you were saying about just putting yourself around those people, both from our standpoints where we are producing podcasts, but for listeners even more so in your lives, because I do it in my life. You surround yourself. There's so many avenues and outlets to surround yourself with people who are where you want to be. It's almost like we're, like the test of life, in 2016 compared to 1900. It's almost like we have the cheat sheet right in front of us for the taking. Those our grandparents and great grandparents who grew up way back then, they didn't have this cheat sheet.
I know, right?
So we got to take advantage of it.
It's so crazy. I love the, I think that's something that I regret, with your, I mean, you have a master's, and how old are you currently?
35.
35. Okay. So I'm 32, going to be 33. So we're in or around the same age, but that aspect of your education and, cause I can see, and just even with the book and your lessons, and I do watch your videos, and I can see that coursework, you speak of a kind of the scatterbrain mentality. That's me all day long.
Yeah.
And just I I'm so envious of your background in education, because you're able to take those elements and to really fine tune them. I think personally that's been a struggle for me, is really trying to narrow down stuff. That's so great that you're able to take that knowledge base, those teaching skills, and that curriculum type mentality, and really make it into something special that people can digest. I mean, that's so wonderful.
And it's a gradual first of all, thank you, and second of all, it's a gradual process. You don't just snap your fingers and happen. The cart didn't come before the horse. The horse, my work for the last 25 years is what got me to this point of having an idea about what the heck I'm talking about. And it's only through that consistent repetition that, it continues to evolve and change and adapt. I'm a big fan of Rob Dyrdek from Ridiculousness and Fantasy Factory and DC Shoes and skateboarding. I'm actually probably going to put out a video here on him. But he talks about this idea of reinventing himself every, I think it was 2 years, he said. And it just kind of happens. You evolve, you change, you believe different things. A couple years ago, so I've been married 5, 12, 12. I've been married 4.5 years. I have a 3-year-old and about a 2-month-old. And I mean, my thoughts are different now. I'm just a different human being. I used to, on Fridays, wake up and drive 3 hours to train for 2 hours and then drive 3 hours home. And to me, that was a complete day. That was all I wanted to do. Yeah. And now you couldn't pay me maybe $500 to do that, because it's just not how I think anymore.
Yeah, that's something, especially becoming a parent. I'm a new father myself, and that experience in of itself has been like, I mean, wow, totally mind blowing. I just, you can read. I read the books. I read the what to expect and all that. And
yeah,
the thing that I've come to realize most is that stuff is just, like, as far as I'm concerned, common knowledge. And
yeah,
like everything that I've been doing as a parent, unknowingly, like looking back now that I'm thinking about my relationship with my parents, they instilled all these values into me, and it's just now coming into light because I'm exercising those ways and those lessons, that wisdom, that love, that compassion. Where as before, when I was not a father, I didn't possess those skills.
You just don't get it.
Yeah,
you just don't get it. It's like I don't know. Did you go to college?
I did for a little, yeah.
Okay, so I can remember distinctly, as a freshman and then as a junior, senior, walking into the CAF, right? You walk into the CAF and, like, as a freshman, you're thinking, don't look like a freshman, don't look like a freshman, don't look like a freshman. But the older people, it's like as if there were an alarm going off around you saying, freshman, freshman, freshman. You can't escape it. It's a natural passage of life.
Like in all the movies.
Yeah. And now it's, with parenthood, you can read a book, but what the heck's a book going to teach you about? Like changing a diaper at 3 a.m. when all you want to do is just shut your eyes for 5 minutes,
Yeah. It tests your patience to a whole different level. I know that much. Levels
that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, I know.
You can't know because you've never been there, right?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's been a wonderful experience. I hope I wish your children health and happiness. That's fantastic, man. Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Very, very cool. Well, tribe, that concludes part 1 of my conversation with the Spaniard. It was so much fun. And be sure to subscribe to the show so you can catch part 2 next week when the Spaniard and I discuss who would win in a mixed martial arts competition, him or me. Our predictions next week. Tune in. Hey, listener, if you get a quick second and you want to head over to memyselfandiradio.com/support, there's some really cool ways to support the show. I'd really appreciate it. And as always, at the end of every show, I'd like to encourage you. Control the controllable. As for the rest, keep on flowing and just be. This has been me, myself, and I. Thanks for tuning in.
Tell me what to do.